and our vigilance, but I am happy to report that we remain on top of that war. We remain extremely vigilant, even as other national security threats emerge. We remain focused to ensure that our country does not provide a room for evil people, terrorists, to hurt us the way they have hurt us in the past in this country. Many of our successes are never reported for obvious reasons, but I can say this without any fear of contradiction, that we have been able to detect and deter attempts to hurt our country by terrorists. And I'm very proud of our security forces, especially those that are involved in counter-terrorism measures, for remaining focused, professional, patriotic, and delivering the results that we are all seeing. I have been at the most affected areas severally. I have engaged with the officers. We want to continue to provide leadership, all of us, together with my colleagues here, to all our officers engaged in counterterrorism, to commend them when they do a good job, to assist them, to give them moral support, to make sure that our country remains a safe country for all of us. Other than that, in terms of priority, about 13 counties in our country have experienced many decades of disorder through or perpetuated by a culture of numerous illegal arms in the hands of criminals who have been using these arms to steal livestock and to perpetuate the primitive culture of banditry. I am happy to report that during the period under review, we have made sustained gains in our war against bandits and the terror that they have posed on our people. I am happy to report that this is the first time that the National Police Service is in a joint operation with the Kenya Defence Forces of our country, in an operation that is led by the National Police Service with the assistance of the Kenya Defence Forces, in accordance with Article 241, 3B of the Constitution. And of course, the Kenya Defence Forces Act, Section 31 and 34. I am happy to report to the country that we have made great strides in the war against banditry, and we deliberately decided that although we know this is a war that is going to take us quite a bit of time, we must first silence the guns in the north of our country and make sure that there is law and order so that we can look at the long-term solutions to this age-old problem. I want to commend the patriotic work done by officers of the National Police Service and the Kenya Defence Forces in Northern Rift Valley, in the areas where the Operation Maliza Uhalifu is ongoing. I have been there numerous times. I have seen the sacrifices that they continue to make every day to make sure that we keep bandits at bay. And this is a good lesson of how the organs of internal security can cooperate with organs of our defense for stabilizing and making sure that our country provides a safe environment for us and our children. And therefore grateful also to the other agencies who are working closely with the security agencies, including national government administration officers and all the teams that have delivered what I consider significant successes in the fight against bandits. I did promise sometimes last year, just a few weeks after I was appointed, that the Kenya Kwanza administration is going to be the administration that will completely obliterate bandits from Kenya and make them part of our history. This problem of livestock, rustling and banditry will come to an end. I also said, and I do reaffirm those words today, that 2023 is the year where, as a country, we are going to make the turning point in the fight against the primitive, barbaric, and murderous behavior of cattle rustling. For a long time, these criminals have been using some spaces within parts of our country which are difficult terrain spaces, inaccessible, and generally uninhabited. It has, over the years, it became very difficult for security agencies to mop bandits from these places. And when I made the orders that we made on 12th of March at the Malasso escarpment, we did gazette certain areas as disturbed and dangerous and requested the public, if there was at all any member of a law-abiding member of the public, to vacate those places. We were not speaking to bandits, we were speaking to any member of the public who could have been in those spaces. And because of the culture of impunity, many of these bandits thought we were playing games. And some of members of the public whom we suspect could have been family members of these criminals heeded the 24-hour notice, and therefore we did promise that any Kenyan who was legitimately affected as a result of the movement will be resettled. And therefore, in our next phase, we're going to look at if any genuine cases of displacement were caused. Our assessment is that there wasn't any displacement, because for those who have gone to these places, these are places which are not even suitable for habitation in the first place. And that's why if you hear a place where security agencies cannot be able to access, then you can imagine the kind of places we are talking about. Some are forests, like Mukogodo Forest in Laikipia. What would someone be doing living in a government forest? Others are dangerous gorges and hills. The Araba Hills in Baringo, the Tandare Valley, the Silale Gorges in Tiati. Other dangerous escarpments, like the Malasso escarpment. You just need to go and see, the kind of terrain we are talking about. All these spaces, I am a proud Kenyan today to report that we have flushed out all criminals from all the areas that we gazetted as disturbed and dangerous. Some of the criminals escaped into the general population and mixed with the general population, and that's why we have had occasional sporadic attacks here and there, livestock stolen here and there, which thefts are not even happening in the grazing areas as used to be in the past, but is happening from homesteads. And we all know that police officers, law enforcement officers cannot be in every homestead. But I also want to report that whenever there have been attacks, we have made significant strides in recovery of stolen livestock. 2 weeks ago, I was in Laikipia North to celebrate our officers there who were able to recover within 12 hours a whole, about 76 heads of cattle which have been stolen in that part with no casualties and on the side of our officers. And we have had many other instances of recovered livestock. We still have a number of livestock which have been stolen during the period under review, which we are still tracking, because what the criminals do is when the livestock is stolen, they divide it into small numbers and scatter in different directions. But we are tracking them. I've been to Samburu, I think 8 days ago or thereabout, and there was an incident there, and we have recovered a significant portion of the herd which was stolen there of goat and sheep. So generally, we are on top of things. Going forward, we will dominate the spaces that I have said. We have completely flushed out bandits from them. We will make sure they will never access those areas ever again, whether there is drought or not, because sometimes they venture into those places in the pretext that that's the only place they can get pasture. We will deal with the problem of pasture differently, but we will never again allow any criminal to access those places. In fact, the government has decided to turn these places into facilities for presence, training, and operations of our organs of national security, both the police, the military, but also other security agencies. Because it's only by dominating the hideouts for bandits that you are able to stifle them from the lifeblood which has sustained their activity for so many decades. We are also upscaling our disarmament program. We have recovered slightly under 200 firearms from the North Rift, but we believe there are thousands of illegal firearms in that region. And we have restrained ourselves from forceful disarmament for a while, for strategic reasons. But I want to make it clear that any person in Kenya holding an illegal firearm must surrender that firearm to government voluntarily, or we shall recover it by use of force. No excuse will be given whatsoever, including that those firearms are used for grazing livestock. You don't need a firearm to graze livestock, you need a stick, a huntsman's stick to graze livestock. Therefore, all people who have firearms which are not lawful must surrender them voluntarily, or we will get them by force. And we will get them. I want to commend particularly Samburu County. It is leading in the number of recovered illegal arms. And I want to congratulate the officers there and the leaders for supporting this government effort. But even the places where we have not recorded much surrender will acquire those weapons. It's just a matter of time. We will venture going forward to long-term solutions to northern Kenya and northern Rift Valley, because the permanent solution is to provide water points for animals to avoid unnecessary migration. But we are also going to open up the north of our country with infrastructure development and social amenities, roads, hospitals, water projects. And it's no longer a development issue, it's a security issue. So already a master plan for that region has been concluded, and we'll roll it out. It's going to take a bit of time, but we are going to mobilize resources from within and without government to transform the north of our country once and for all. I have said before when I appeared before Parliament, the future economic stability of this country lies in us securitizing large tracts of our country that remain unsafe, and therefore they cannot attract local and foreign investments. And many of our people, the huge number of our population, is struggling in a very small space of our country, yet we have a huge country which remains with untapped potential because of insecurity. So we are going to roll out in our next public accountability statement, we will say the initial steps. Some of them we have started taking already. In this regard, we will utilize the labor, expertise, and equipment of our security agencies, including the National Youth Service, to reconstruct our country and to provide for livelihood support and resilience for our communities in the northern part of our country as part of making sure the place remains safe and secure for local and foreign investments. That's where we are. During the period under review, we have also been able to initiate war on our number 3 priority national security threat, which is the trade, manufacture, use, and abuse of illicit and toxic alcoholic drinks, narcotics, psychotropic substances, and the engagement in other organized crimes. We have already done 2 regional forums. We will continue with other forums in Upper Eastern, at the coast, in Western, in Nyanza, every part of our country. The problem of toxic alcoholic drinks that are being manufactured and sold to our young people with detrimental consequences looks like a social problem. It's not a social problem. It's a very serious national security problem. And if we are not careful, when all the adults today are gone from this country, we will not have a country to hand over to the next generation. And therefore, those who are engaged in the manufacture, sale, distribution of toxic and chemical-laced dangerous drinks, drugs of all types, your time in business in Kenya is over. We will fight with you with the same energy, clarity, focus, and make sure that we get you out of our country and you either look for something else to do, or we will get you something else to do, whatever that is. So again, that is something we've just initiated, and therefore maybe in the next accountability statement I'll be reporting progress, because we must win that war. The fourth major national security matter in our assessment is the rise in violent extremism in several fronts. Number 1, religious extremism. And I think the Shakahola example will just illustrate best that we have a problem in this country which we regard as a religious problem, a social issue, but it's not. It's an existential threat to our country. We are still in Shakahola, and I am afraid we have more mass graves in Shakahola which are not opened. We'll start opening those graves on Monday, once the current phase of postmortems of the last cohort of bodies is concluded at the end of the week. We are also going to take new measures which are announced from that space, which has almost become my second office. Next week, I'll be back there. But the kind of damage Shakahola has done on Kenya, if we do not remedy and deal with this problem head on, this is the kind of threat that can hurt the country in the scale and manner in which some countries have been hurt. Our good neighbor Rwanda is an example of what happened in that country because of ethnic fundamentalism. Now that is religious extremism. We are also witnessing cultural extremism, mainly in central Kenya and parts of Upper Eastern. In Upper Eastern, the cultural extremism, and Northern Rift Valley, the cultural extremism is in the perpetuating of some of the crimes we are fighting in that area, including cattle rustling. There is a cultural extremism component that we must tackle. In central Kenya, we have seen during the period under review a reemergence of cultural extremism by groups which are proscribed under the law of Kenya and which some people would like to revive. We saw them chanting the other day outside the DCI when we arrested a suspect. And you can see the courage, the demeanor, the impunity of these criminals. I spoke on Sunday. I would like to repeat for purposes of clarity. Any person who thinks that we can go back to the years when terror groups hiding behind culture raped our women and our children, as well as extorted money from business people, that person is dead wrong. All those who could be recruiting unsuspecting youths to take part or to join prescribed organizations are enemies of Kenya. And for the sake of Kenya, we have to come for you, and we'll get rid of you so that you go where criminals go. Criminals are supposed to be in prison, and I am the Minister for Prisons. As much as I want to decongest prisons, but at the same time, I have room for dangerous criminals, like the people recruiting our young boys, giving them hard drugs and cheating them, that they can fight security agencies, extort money, kill people, and commit sexual violence against the women and girls of Kenya. So there is a cultural extremism, and then religious extremism, and non-religious extremism. No amount of resistance will arrest our resolve to make sure that Shakahola never happens again on the soil of Kenya. No amount of resistance, not even by going to court and getting injunctions.